Hello everyone, I'm Andrew Can, and if I can, you can too. I'm excited to be live with a very special guest. Aaron, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey guys, I'm Aaron Goldstein, Becomeaprime. Glad to be back on the show.
If you haven't seen the first episode with Aaron, I will put a card on screen now. If you are excited for this live, please let us know in the chat with hashtag you can too. Don't worry, have hashtags this time around on the stream. I know I got a little roasted for the last one. These are happening every Thursday, so you can come by, check them out. Really excited to be back. Today we are talking all about thumbnail design. Aaron, you have been working with photography and all these different mediums for photos for a while. What have you learned just kind of looking at what you've done for thumbnails?
A lot of my inspiration in thumbnails, honestly, there's a lot of knowledge out there. I look to other YouTubers. I look to official YouTube resources that talk about how to do proper thumbnails. But even more than that, I just go back to the basics of design, basics of photography. When all else fails, always go back to the basics because the basics are never wrong.
So just wanted to take the time to welcome Chewbacca Sketches. Ike, welcome to the chat. Ike did a great stream herself. You can check that out. Really excited for today's piece because I'm going to show you a click-through rate of a previous thumbnail. But before we get into that, everything I'm going to be doing, all the tools I'm going to be showing are going to be using a fantastic service known as TubeBuddy. TubeBuddy is an amazing program. I work for this company as a disclaimer, and you can use my affiliate link in the description, tubebuddy.com/can. We're going to be doing some A/B testing today. We are going to show you data so we can go on fact, not feeling. And this is something Aaron and I had to kind of discuss a little bit, where we would design a thumbnail we really loved, but the audience didn't necessarily take to it. And it's learning that every audience is different. So Aaron, what do you feel like when we create a thumbnail, but it doesn't necessarily go well with an audience?
Sometimes, and I mean, we see this experience in any channel almost, including yours, is that we may create something that is absolutely by the book's perfection, and an audience just doesn't react with it. They don't click through. It just doesn't resonate with them. And so, I mean, like, it goes to show, I guess, sometimes even though it may look like it's absolutely perfect, that it's not in the right direction. So, uh, I mean, honestly, I'd say really the thing to take away from that is that sometimes you got to suck up the pride and realize that whatever the audience wants is what you got to do.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to take a time to read what PSPR Paranormal said. They said that they had 33 subscribers in April. With the help of TubeBuddy, they are now at 2,000 subscribers. Great Channel was able to look at it a few weeks ago. Now, I do want to say we are doing channel reviews today. That will be after we kind of go through our process on thumbnail design. That being said, let's go ahead and dive right into it. Jeff Eaterly is in the chat. What's up, Andrew? I have now till VidSummit to crush it. Can't wait to get there. See what's next. Jeff is also a photographer, does some great work. So we are going to pull up the first thing, which is my desktop, so we can better see what we are discussing today. And that is more so based on the click-through rate. And click-through rate is, again, super important. Something that not a lot of people are taking too much into account, but that's something we're going to change, especially if we can help it. So the way you get there, as always, is you go to analytics. I'm going to be using TubeBuddy. I'm going to move you, Aaron. Sorry, have to get you off the screen. But doesn't mean you're not in everyone's heart. Hashtag Aaron's in our heart. Hashtag don't worry. So while we are loading up the analytics here, we're going to go through click-through rates. And this is something that I didn't know until very recent, and that you can show your best click-through rate by just clicking right here on the screen. As you can see, if we zoom in even more on the beta site, you can see that we have impressions click-through rate. And if we click on that, it will show you your highest click-through rate and your lowest. And that is super important, especially if you're trying to create good thumbnails. So I'm going to do it for the last 90 days, which gives us a little more concrete of what's worked over these last 90 days. And what you'll see is some decently high click-through rates on some of the thumbnails, and some that could be even better. YouTube said anything above 10% is above average, but some of these are coming really close. And if you notice, the ones that come really close to the higher do really well. Just have to say thank you so much to Dimmy, who gave 230. I think that's called, I don't know what that currency is, but thank you. I genuinely appreciate it. And it's the biggest number, look, on the channel. I really do appreciate you. You do a fantastic job of what you do. Everyone, check out Dimmy's channel. Really great stuff there.
That's
And
Swedish money, by the way.
thank you. See, Aaron's helping me out. That's why you get a friend like Aaron.
$25.
Oh, thank you. Wow. I really do appreciate it. You Do It is also in here. Met him at Video Marketing World. Really cool to see you. Welcome, RPM Nexus. Let's go back to showing the top and the worst. So as we look, what we'll notice is some thumbnails that I thought did well, and based on the time, also will have lower click-through rates. So newer ones have lower click-through rate. And remember, this is through the last 90 days. If I change this to the last 7 days, we're going to see different click-through rates. So what I try to aim for is either 90 days or the month before. So it's pretty important to understand, because if I look for August, the click-through rate is fluctuating frequently. So it's always important to realize, the time period, what you're doing. And it's important to think, how are these performing relatively to what's going on? So these VidCon thumbnails are doing well because VidCon Australia is coming. So this install acoustic foam is doing well because a lot of people want to start YouTube. And then you have to remember that overall they may not be doing so well, but if we look at them in a more condensed way in the past month, that gives you a decent idea. And click-through rate changes based on ranking, based on a lot of things, but getting an idea of what thumbnails did well with click-through rate is important. So if I want to see, I can kind of get an idea of the thumbnails. This is a good thumbnail of the design we're going to be trying to imitate today. And as you can see here, it's pretty much me. You can actually see Aaron, a little bit of Aaron there. And it's holding up the creator badge, super relevant to the topic at hand. So it's pretty important. What did you click to see the click-through rate by best performance? Just so I can recover that. If you're watching the replay, you just go back over here. You see click-through rates. You go to analytics. You go to reach viewers. You just click the graph, and it'll show you click-through rate. So now that we know and we see what we're trying to imitate, we can see my channel's general overall click-through rate, which is 8.8%, which isn't bad at all. It's really in the higher average. And as you see here, most of my content that is being served, if it'll load, of course, classic YouTube needs something to work. It won't. There we are. 66% of my content is being found by people searching me, which is great because YouTube's a search engine. But I also want my content to be recommended, which is at 33%. Before, it wasn't that high, and through getting better thumbnails, through testing and working on this, I've been able to get that to go higher and higher. And I kind of want a perfect balance where I want about this is for my own personally, I want it to be about 60-40, where people are finding me from search, and then people that recognize me and see me on recommended trust and click. And that's just my own personal gauge of it. And let me know in those comments, either live or in the replay, what are you looking for when it comes to your click-through rate to your search rate and percentages? And of course, there are other factors such as external, etc. But I think that's really important to talk about. Aaron, I know that with click-through rate, as a designer, what does that tell you?
Well, I mean, click-through rate honestly is how I can sell myself as an artist, is basically my success rate almost. If I have a thumbnail up and it's getting good click-through, that's something that I can tell a future employer or a client, like, hey, I can get this kind of click rates historically through what I've done, and this is what I can do for you. But if I'm not getting good click-through, that tells me that obviously I'm doing something very, very wrong.
And I think that's a very fair point. And if you are a photographer, if you're a graphic designer, if you're someone who likes thumbnails, one thing you really need to think about is click-through rate, because YouTube has even said that click-through rate, it's what they use to kind of recommend your content, because if they know that people are likely to click through and watch a piece of content, they're going to recommend it. And if that content has high watch time as it is, they're going to send that forward. Now, we are here in the old Photoshop. And what we're going to be doing is trying to replicate what I know has been successful on my channel. And with that style, I've been able to get into the high 5s, the high 8s. It really just kind of depends what the content is. And that's why we talked about titling and SEO. And we usually talk about SEO. But lately, I've been really focused on click-through rate because YouTube released it this year. And it's so important. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm pretty intermediate level with Photoshop. I wouldn't say I am an expert by any means, but that's why I brought in Aaron, who has worked on a lot of the graphics for my channel. For example, this right here is an Aaron creation, the little AK. And what we can see is this image focuses on a recent video I did and the travels to get to there. So I want to kind of show this click-through rate and kind of why I'm going back. Because I think this film is good, but what's killing this film is it's high in search, it's high in a lot of things, but its click-through rate is just historically very low. That AK is A-OK, says Chewbacca Sketches. Thank you. But as we see, this click-through rate is so low, 0.6%. So people find it through search. And people find it from other ways. In fact, I tried YouTube advertising. I tried suggested videos. I tried seeing how this would do well. But it's being suggested in my own content, but it's not being found really outside of it. And what I found is by doing YouTube advertising, even with this thumbnail, and this is before they changed it, is that it's not necessarily that great for getting conversions. And because before this, all we had was AdWords to sell with. So knowing this is that people don't necessarily hate this video, but they're just not clicking through to it. And if we change this to last month, we'll see it's gone up slightly with some minor tweaks, and that was what I did to the SEO. But even with those minor tweaks, what we're seeing is that people aren't clicking through. So that's why knowing what works for my channel, having me in the thumbnail, having a clear branding bit really does matter, because if people can relate, if people can see that this film is trying to make you feel something, that's the point. And what I feel here and what I learned in this film is the joys of travel. So you have me in front of a really cool landmark, you see me smiling, and it gives the idea that I'm having fun. It also gives the idea that, God, I needed a haircut. But that's not the point. The point is this is a genuine smile. This is a moment of seeing something I've always wanted to do, something I just had a lot of fun doing. And I think that this image captures that. What do you think, Aaron?
I mean, I can tell you, I'd be smiling like that if I was near that plane. I'd love aircraft. It's good.
Well, thank you. PSPR Paranormal saying, how is everyone doing? Please let us know either live or in the replay. I always like seeing what people are saying. So let's jump into this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do something that I want to balance the colors. Now, this is just a way that I do it. Aaron, how would you recommend we balance these colors?
I mean, this is coming from me, who's on Skype, who maybe doesn't have the most accurate representation of what this looks like, but I usually do a little bit of brightness adjustments. I might do color balance. I usually don't do hue and saturation unless something is really off.
So you're gonna add. So you're saying we should go to brightness and contrast here?
That would be my first go usually. I try to make sure that the highlights aren't too punched, and if I can fix that at all, I mean, that's usually my goal. Sometimes I have to do levels instead of brightness. It all depends on really what's going on. You might want to move that up a layer, by the way. The brightness, you might want to move it up a layer because there's something over it.
Oh, this is a duplicate of what we're doing, so I can keep the original.
I know, you can't see what you're doing.
I have this layer selected. Is that not the right layer? Of course. Like I said, I'm always a student.
Yeah, you have to turn off the top layer there so you can see what you're doing to the bottom layer. Not that one. Or that one.
Well, this in my head would be the top, right?
The one right above brightness. Turn that one off. Yeah, that one. Now you can see what you're doing to it.
All right, makes more sense. So with this, what do you think I should do? You think I should bring the brightness down? Focus a little bit more on that?
Overall, the goal, I would say, is to normalize the brightness on your cheeks, but at the same time, we don't want to crush it too much. Like see what was
this.
starting to happen there is it's starting to crush it a little bit. You don't want to do that. So in this case, what I'm actually going to say is go ahead and actually do a levels adjustment instead of brightness and contrast.
All right, so do you want me to delete this effect?
Yeah.
And again, I'm having Aaron here just to kind of explain, and this is similar to the process I normally try to go to. So levels adjustment.
Okay, now see right there, that middle arrow up there on the graph. Go ahead and drag that a little bit to your right.
To the right. And what is this doing?
Well, really what it's letting me is get a look there. And now I'm going to tell you to drag it to the left instead.
Drag it to the left. You can
Yeah.
fix that with highlights and shadows to bring more brightness to the shadows, says Beanie Draws.
So now see, as you start going to the left, it's going to make the shadows a little bit brighter. Now, don't want to go too far,
No, I was just
because
showing the extreme.
if you go too far, then
We
things
get
start to
this.
get a little bit weird. Yeah. And so now, what really you have to remember with the levels, you can't move the highlights, because if you move the highlights, the only thing it's going to do is get worse, and you don't want that to happen. So we want to just move the midtones a little bit to the left there, and that's going to kind of normalize it out.
All right.
And so now, if you went and did a brightness adjustment, it should actually bring it down uniformly, and you're not going to see that whole, like, your face is super, super dark in the shadows. It should help just a tad bit. And you really want it to be slight, because unfortunately you just can't push it that far with really what you're working with there.
And again, usually I would do something where, like in the original video, I took a photo of the city skyline, which I thought would look good, but didn't perform well. So this is me repurposing something that's in the video. That's me having fun within a moment. And it's understanding that you can redo these things. So
So
Aaron,
now you have your facial detail now, which I think is probably one of the most important parts, because YouTube does look for having people in the thumbnail, and now you
absolutely.
can definitely tell that it's a face.
So what would you do on contrast? Because I usually do a decent amount, and I'll show an exaggerated contrast now. So this is contrast bumped all the way up. And this is too much, but usually I try to add a little more contrast to images when I'm doing films. And if you ever want to see what it looks like without the effect, you can just select the eye to see what it looks like kind of without the effect selected. And you can kind of see in real time the work we're doing. So I'll give you a chance, Aaron, to take a look at it with the effects added.
Now, see, something tells me that this is a frame grab from the video,
Absolutely.
and so it's already been post-processed. I wouldn't add more contrast. That's just me personally.
You do. It says
Uh,
that he adds plus 30 contrast and saturation to certain elements of the thumbnail, which is interesting.
in some cases, that'll happen. A lot of the car photography I'll end up, boosting the contrast significantly sometimes, especially if it's a cloudy day. Uh, so
Beanie
it
asks
does
a
have its
really
uses.
decent question. For a photo like this, would it be odd to take just the background photo, then another of a face with better lighting, then cut out his face and put it on the background photo? So Beanie, I've tried that, and what I've found is that it doesn't perform as well as I'd like. And again, this could just be that I like the photo, but my audience doesn't react to it. But I found that stills from the actual image, I think that's just my examples. And of course, I if that works later for me, maybe it's just it kind of goes back to what we discussed earlier. A lot of this is based on opinion, but then your fact with data doesn't match your opinion, so you have to kind of change that. So I probably would do another photo like that, but historically on this channel, that hasn't worked well for me. So it's always understanding what works for you and what doesn't. So Aaron, what do you think of this?
I mean, it's relatively pretty good.
Considering what we have.
Yeah, considering what we have, yeah, I mean, obviously, you've got me, who's generally, when I do thumbnails, I'm working on a very high-end DSLR,
Mm.
uh, and not working with a video still. So it's it's one of those things I have to tune myself back, because normally I'm very, very critical and very, very much of a perfectionist when I'm doing a photo for an image. It's going to be used as a thumbnail, anything. I just get super perfectionist. But being what we're working with here, there's just not too much you can do before you start to distort the image. So, like I said, I probably wouldn't do the contrast because I guarantee it's post-processed beforehand,
Hmm.
so it's probably not necessary. Um, Really, there's not much that should be done there that hasn't already been done in, your post-processing for the video.
Hmm.
So other than the brightness adjustment, I likely wouldn't do anything.
So, and this just kind of goes on stuff I've found that's worked for me, and maybe you know a better way. What I found works is by separating myself slightly from the background. And God, I don't know how I let myself have this hair.
Yeah,
This
you're gonna
is,
have fun with that. I almost wouldn't suggest doing it because the hair, with as low resolution as you're working, you're gonna have a lot of difficulty.
and if you see what I'm doing, I'm zooming in on the image so you can see that what I'm doing is just kind of quick selecting. And again, this is by no means a Photoshop tutorial. It's just talking about my thought process and design. If you want to see a Photoshop tutorial, I'll post some of Aaron's, which are way better thought out than a quick on the fly live, but it gives you an idea of kind of what I do to my images to make them a little better for what I'm trying to accomplish. And maybe it's not terrible if I cut out some of this crazy hair.
And we'll see that this almost goes back to Beanie's question of is it okay to take an image of a scene and then take another photo of just your face and put it in? I think that can absolutely work. And obviously, if no one's responding to it, then that's a whole nother scenario there. But if it's done really, really well, I'm talking you have to match the lighting angles. And if you can make it look absolutely real, I'd say go for it because chances are it's going to always come out better.
Quick selecting is a nightmare, shorter than the pen tool, but still, yikes, says Schumacher Sketches. Absolutely. And again, most people, and this is something I had to learn, is this is how most people are viewing YouTube thumbnails. And in reality, it's on mobile devices. Most of my views, about 80%, comes from mobile. So this means that this is how most of my audience will see this thumbnail. And understanding that, it makes you realize, wow, what elements really stand out? What can they clearly see? And they can see me very clearly. And that's just kind of what I had to learn about and deal with. And it's again, understand the platform, understand how people are consuming your content, right? Because otherwise, you might spend too much time on something that in reality didn't need as much time as we put into it. And that's important to kind of understand for yourself. And that's why I always say, do what you know works for you.
I just love this comment about how selecting is a pain, and you've seen how fast I can select some things in Photoshop. Like I go very quickly.
But and then you see me doing it. I'm sure you have a million comments about it, right? So I think it's again a trained skill that you have that maybe I don't necessarily possess, and maybe other people don't either. But it's understanding the very basics. And I do want to say that when it comes to design, what do you find works for your own thumbnails? Let us know. I mean, we're working on my own. I'm always curious, and I'm sure Aaron's curious to what people think and know works for them. Again, for me, what I found to work is me either at the event or if I'm trying to consider doing a film thumbnail. Like this is technically a film. So this might just work for YouTube, but if I was to put this into film festivals, I'd probably use the original image. So it's always understanding what works with your audience and what makes people click through. So this film again is about traveling and why you should do it and why you should see new things and the joy of it. Chewbacca Sketches says try to have an aesthetic of some kind. Absolutely. You can do quick selection around the hair, then use the eraser tool and make hair a bit transparent. Again, though, that requires some layering and putting a new face over the background image, which is true. Very true from Beanie there. So if we are to cut myself out, and then I do this, you see just how bad I did.
I mean, let's be honest, that's not too bad.
Considering the limitations of what I was doing, this gives you an idea. Now, Aaron, what would you do to fix this? Kind of going back to what Beanie said about highlighting and removing.
Well, see, really the first problem, you want to make sure you have a copy of this because the copy is going to go in the back just to make sure,
Which I
things are
do.
a little filled in there. You're gonna want to make a copy of the copy because I know what you're gonna do to it. You're probably gonna blur it, right?
Yeah, the background. So we have a copy of a copy, again, working in layers. So you can
You have a
have.
copy of the masked one. You
Oh,
don't
okay.
want a copy of that one.
A little vague there, but I do have a copy of
There
the
you go.
original.
All right.
So,
Now you're also going to want to move the copy you're working on right now, the one at the top. You want to move that under your adjustments because otherwise you're not going to see them. And then you can go into your mask layer and just take the brush tool, set it to black, and just kind of
brush
brush
tool.
away.
That it's a black, you said?
Yeah, set it to black, pure black. And I'd say for hardness, try to get it to about 90, 95. Leaves a little bit of room for some edge so it doesn't look too fake when you do it.
Now, what does this do for those who may not know?
Your
Hello, doing
hardness, go for it.
hello, doing it with Jason. I am here for the. Okay, not sure what that means, but you were saying, Aaron?
The hardness is basically going to affect the edge that your brush leaves. If it's on 0, it looks very, very smooth. You're on the wrong layer.
All right,
So Command Z that. All the way. There you
all
go.
right.
And now
So
onto your mask layer. That's your second one. You're in white. You want to make sure that's black.
ah, again, folks, always
You can
learning.
hit the X key. It'll switch it.
I learned something new too, and I think it's important to do this live so you can see that not everything people like. It's okay to be a student. A lot of people just aren't aware of that. Okay, too much.
And so you got to be very kind of smooth with it. And you'll notice that it just has a little bit of that soft edge. It's not too drastic, but it's kind of lining up with the way the rest of the image looks.
Absolutely,
And that's pretty much your goal.
and you see, I learned something new just by doing this. See, this isn't how I did this at all before. But now, knowing this, I can go back and fix and adjust and change. And I think that's important. Oh boy. So for my hair, which is completely trimmed and completely fine for me, and not that I'm going to try to fix it at all, but how would I fix it?
We'll see. Here's the hard part is that there's a really amazing tool. Used to be called Refine Edge. Now it's called Mask and Selection, something like that.
Hmm.
Uh, Good old Adobe going and changing the names on things that was already fine. Um, but this tool would basically allow you to kind of smooth out the hair and get a lot of the fine details in the hair back. But once you've already made your selection and you've kind of started working with it, there's almost not a lot you can do. You can go back and try it,
Sometimes
but
it's painful watching others learn more Photoshop techniques, says Beanie. Absolutely. But I also feel like Beanie, like that's probably how I feel when I watch Aaron learn Premiere, which is something I know pretty well.
oh god, you cringe when you watch me do Premiere. I'm horrible.
But it
Horrible.
shows that our strengths can be in other places. And again, I'm not afraid to make mistakes. So now I'm gonna say this is about as good as we're gonna get, unless you think there's more we can do to
Considering the fact we don't have 3 hours, I'm gonna say we're good.
it. So should I add a feather? What do you think?
Well, see, the entire reason I had to do the brush at 90 is so you wouldn't have to do a feather. It's
Okay.
relatively smooth, and because of the resolution you're working at, it's really gonna look smooth. Now, if we were working on, say, like a high-end DSLR, then yeah, you would absolutely want to do a feather. But in
Now
this case,
here
not necessary.
now here it is with the image, right? So this is the copy of the image, and what I usually do is I go to filter, I add a blur, and I go to Gaussian blur, right? And I kind of play around with how blurred I want the background, right? I want the background to be noticeable, but not completely in focus, especially since it's almost too much detail and your eyes competing. So what it
Now,
goes,
see, in this case, I have a suggestion for you.
okay, we blur it completely and you hate me. Got it.
I recommend actually using a special type of blur.
Ooh.
It's a blur that you can actually really customize a little bit with.
All right.
And it'll be under filter
All right.
and then blur gallery. It's the second one
All
under
right.
blur.
So blur gallery. Got
Blur
it. Sorry.
gallery. There you go. And then we're gonna go ahead over to iris blur.
And again, learning new things with you. And what I'm seeing this does is it kind of brings the focus on whatever we want it to, right?
Now see, if you look way over by your hair, you see how you got that blurring brownness, and that
Yes.
shows the imperfection in your selection. So what you can go ahead and do is bring that circular piece right there
This
right
one.
around you. Yeah.
This. Making sure. Okay. So bring this around me.
And then just kind of form fit it to your head there.
Would I do that doing this, or is it another way?
You'll want to use the 4 points at the circles. You'll see them. They're very hard to see, actually,
Got
but
it.
there you go. And now, if you see those 4 inner points that are kind of within the circle there,
So we
that's where the
want to.
blurring starts.
So I want to make sure that this kind of fits my face naturally.
Yeah, you want to make sure that those pins right there are after your hairline, because you don't want to see the blurring on the hair. That's kind of what we're trying to avoid with this.
So kind of like this. Maybe move this up a bit. Maybe use my chin as the point for the bottom, like this. Would you say that works pretty well?
Relatively good. Maybe just widen it out a little bit.
Okay, very attention grabbing, says Chewbacca Sketches. And all of a sudden, we've put effort on me, but it's almost too much. So, what would you say to that?
You could try reducing the blur a little bit. That
Which
should help.
would
They'll
be.
be way up there on iris blur where it says
I
blur.
see it right here, making sure I utilize this. So, iris blur, and then. All right, so.
So now you see as you take that down a little bit, and you don't have to go too drastic. Sometimes even 3 or 4 or 5 can just be enough, and it gets you that little bit of blur you want, but at the same time, it's not compromising your hair.
And it's keeping me in focus. Now, here's something I noticed is that it's also putting this stuff behind me. If I zoom in a little, if it'll let me, probably not. But it's kind of, I'll just go to 400% here. This is giving a better example of what I'm talking about. It's kind of putting this here. And people are saying this is pretty cool. They didn't know about this. So see, this is the importance. Your Photoshop skills are way better than mine. 2 flames. Thank you, Dimmy. But as I said, always learn. And this is stuff you can actionably take away. If you learn something here. So what am I doing here? What I kind of like this. This is just another way to work on that blur, isn't it?
Yeah, that's basically just a little blur scroll right there. Really, like, see, the only problem to this technique is that yes, you are going to have little parts of the image by your face that won't be blurred,
Mm-hmm.
and that can be solved through layering. But at the same time, sometimes you can't get too perfect with it, and there's always going to be some sort of a trade-off. Do you want to have blur
Well,
around the
like what
hair?
I'm noticing is as I am changing the points that you told me about, I'm seeing the change to the blur. So if I control Z that, we can see what I'm talking about. As I extend it out, the blur kind of comes in, and then I can really kind of focus it more on my face, like on this part anyway. And the detail in the hair seems to still be there too. Am I wrong on that?
Well, no, the detail is definitely there. You can see a little bit of blurring. It's more apparent at the top because,
Mm-hmm.
as you can see, the dot is below the hair. So if you move that circle up a little bit, should pay off a little bit, and you should see a little bit of benefit.
And I'm seeing more detail. So is there any way to just move these independently without?
Um, Not gonna lie, I've never tried it, but holding down Option would be the only way I think that would
Alt
work.
on PC, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it does.
So I'm holding down the Alt key, and we're getting a whole lot of nothing. So
Okay, so that's a no. If it is, I don't know
oh
how to do it.
wait, yeah, there we are. Alt key finally worked. It was a little finicky, but it's interesting. As I just move this point independently, I can see some of the detail from that background be changed. So if I grab this one as well, grab it, and then it's weird because I have to grab it, then hit Alt. So I grab it, then I hit Alt, and it'll move independently that way. And I can see some of the detail kept in my face. Yeah, I have a little bit here, but it's not as noticeable, and I'm actually pretty
Let's
okay
see.
with that.
You can bring that bottom dot down up as well. Bring
This
it
one?
up a little bit past your chin, And because your face is on a second level, you're not going to see any blur on the face.
Fair. So where would you say? Put it in the mouth? All right, putting a dot in my mouth. What happened? I wouldn't even notice the smaller details for a thumbnail. I think it looks terrific, says you do it. But again, this just shows like the level of detail you can go. But again, all this detail may not even end up working. So it's the how do I work? Chewbacca Sketches asks Beanie, does he speak Spanish? I don't know. Finding out together. So where would you say put it? In the mouth?
Yeah, right about there ought to work.
I'll put it
You
on my
should
lips.
notice that as you zoom out, you're really not going to see any detail anymore. But at the same time, it doesn't have that kind of halo effect around it.
Very true. It seems a little more natural comparatively to what I was doing before, which I like. So if I hit OK, this should save the effect, right?
Yeah, make sure you do high quality first. A little high quality check mark right there.
Well, remember YouTube needs to be under a certain level, which is 2 megabytes. So I
Oh,
always am.
it's irrelevant.
Okay, just checking. Because sometimes you do stuff like this, and all of a sudden, it's like, wow, that looks great. Oh no, my thumbnail is 100 megabytes. I got a
Like,
problem.
see, the fun fact is that I can't even tell you what that check mark does because if I use it or don't use it, I don't tell the difference. But I always do it just in case.
I caramba, says Chewbacca Sketches. So let us know what your thoughts are on this thumbnail. Always curious to see what people are thinking. I think it's pretty good. My only fear is that when I go to 25%, okay, you can still actually see the space shuttle pretty well. Which is, again, I always view it as a mobile user. So you see me, you see the background pretty decent. And considering where we were to where we are now, and I like this effect. Now, let's say I wanted to really make myself stand out. Would you recommend maybe adding a background? Because I know some users, what they'll do is they'll add like a halo or a background. Let's say I wanted to do that.
I personally don't like doing that kind of a thing just because I find that it sometimes just looks a little cheesy, if you know what I mean.
Yes, but I
And
always think I'm just, for the sake of showing it and testing, let's see.
yeah, for the sake of doing it, you can go ahead into
I still
your
prefer the
blending
cutout blur
styles.
instead of this blur. I don't mind imperfect blends around the hair, says Beanie. And again, that's what comes down to personal style, right? So that is where you could personally go in and that wouldn't be what you do. And that's the beauty of art, is that you can have an opinion and I can have an opinion and we're both right. And that's what I love the art world for. So if we were to do it, what my natural instinct, and Chewbacca's sketches go on it, he says stroke. And so my first instinct is just to add like double click on this, which I'm sure you're cringing for, but my first like natural instinct would be to do this and just hit stroke, which I know probably isn't what you'd recommend. So I'm always curious to what you would do.
Well, I mean, the stroke obviously does work. Another good one sometimes can be drop shadow. There's also outer glow. Those are all amazing effects, and I use all of them very frequently, even. But another thing that I like to do sometimes, because when you're working on an effect that is going by the shape of a layer, sometimes it just doesn't go your way, if you know what I mean. And so I will make a layer under that layer and paint it out by hand. That's very time consuming to get it perfect, but sometimes that's how I'll do it. When
And
you don't have
again,
a lot of time, this is the way to go.
and I like that, we get a little bit of glow. Now, what I would say is this probably wouldn't be something I'd add personally, but that's one of those differences where you can see different people's thought process. And neon green stroke is what people are saying. So let's try changing this to neon green, I guess. Let's go for it, right? Because who knows? Maybe we end up liking it. And then if we, zoom out, immediately we see focus on me. The thing I don't necessarily like about it is it's almost too distracting in my opinion. But
The
that's again,
MLG is real.
right? I feel Major League Gaming for sure. But I get the idea, and you could do it with white, kind of as I had it. And the reason I chose white originally is because there's a lot of white naturally in the image, kind of with the road, and it kind of looks like it's coming up, just surrounding me, putting more focus. And as we zoom out, we can see a little more focus. I almost would say I kind of prefer it without, but it does add. I can't I can't argue that it does add some more. And of course, I can probably play with it to make it a little easier to where it's not as noticeable. And then I think it's a little different. Not the cloud part, though. Says doing it with Jason. So I'm going to say no to the effect, but just a quick way to show it. And I do think if we go back to the original image, we go to what we had originally, which was if we get rid of all of this.
You want to know a shortcut?
Sure.
Turn all of those back on and then go to the one you wanted to put on and hold down your Alt key and click the eye on the one you actually want to see.
So if I wanted to see this, wow. I'm learning new things. So this is what we worked with, and this is what we have now. So, and again, learning new things. So you can oversaturate a glow. If so, then do that. And again, I like the progress. Option on a Mac, right?
Yeah, there's option on a Mac. I've been converting to Windows because I'm starting to realize a lot of people are using it.
But if you take a look at the difference here, all of a sudden, what seems to be almost too distracting, it gives my viewer a little more focus. So Beanie, the shortcut again is by holding Alt, going over the eye, which layer is visible, or Option on a Mac, and then you can see all at once. And again, that's why I love working with Aaron. He shows me these little details, but like the problem I had with this just being the default is there's almost too much detail. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like you see fans, you see people, you can see the sign, but when we do this, we lose some of that, and the focus is here with a cool background. Window doesn't overheat as much as Mac, says Beanie Draws.
I will fight him on that.
I am a Windows guy. I'm not going to get into this. Doing good at doing it with Jason. Thanks for asking, says PSPR Paranormal Pursuit. So with that, we are going to go ahead. I'm going to save this, and we're going to do an A/B test, and we're going to show how you can showcase that. Again, we wanted to get really into the Photoshop side of this, and I'm sure Aaron is like, oh, great, look at all of these. So, Aaron, how would you export this? What I usually do is I go to export, quick export as PNG.
I mean, there's various ways of doing it. I usually go through the save as method because that's just how I was taught, and
Matt
I've
Gal
done
over
it
here
forever.
says Shannon Vlogs. And as much fun as it is to see me save these files, I'm curious, what are you guys doing for your Photoshop? Are you using Photoshop? Are you using something like Canva? Are you even using the TubeBuddy thumbnail generator, which we might show off just in a little bit? If you would like to see us do the TubeBuddy thumbnail generator hashtag TubeBuddy thumbnail generator in the live chat or in the replay, please let me know. I'm curious. So as much fun as saving this is, we're going to show it again. Ooh, I'm going to call this Talk Less, Travel More V2. So this is the second version of that. And it gives you an opportunity to see it. GIMP all the way back in 2014, says our good friend Ike. And again, I've actually used GIMP. I've used paint.net. It's what you have access to. That's something that not a lot of people discuss. Is if that's all you have access to, then utilize what you have available to you. There's nothing wrong with using a software due to that's all you have available to you. You can't, if you don't have the access to Photoshop, which I think is a great tool. I use it a lot. I'm sure Aaron would recommend it. But it's also, don't use the limitations of what you have. If you know there's a software like GIMP or paint.net or Canva or whatever, use those and find ways to be creative. I think sometimes limitations can cause and breathe new creativity. So it's always kind of how you see it in that light. I said a few videos ago, but I try to give a construction paper feel and also stop motioning some paper cutouts now too. Psh, MS Paint all the way, says Beanie Draws. Again, I know Aaron is a huge MS Paint fan. He thinks that Photoshop is overrated.
Just holding my breath over here.
Ike says that's on another level of grasp. Absolutely. So as we go, I'm going to show A/B testing. So TubeBuddy drop down menu, A/B tests. Sign into TubeBuddy. Believe it or not, everyone, I don't want my information compromised, so you get to see my face again. I wanted to thank all of you from the last time who purchased the If I Can, You Can Too shirts. I really do appreciate it. We are up to 20, which is mind-boggling to me. Kate, is not here, but you'll probably watch the replay, sent me a photo of her wearing it, and it's so amazing to know that you guys believe it. And one thing I put in a hashtag, and this is going to be the official hashtag of my channel, is hashtag startup creators. This is something I kind of want to be a movement that I think that small creators is a bad mindset. We don't, when a business is starting, we call them startup businesses, and we understand that they are working on things and that they're not perfect. Why don't we do that for YouTube channels? Why don't we do that for creators? So I'm saying hashtag startup creators. I think it's a pretty good message. I like the idea. I think we can see a lot of innovation. And like, remember, Apple, Google were all startups at one point, and these amazing titans can start from a place and a beginning. So I think it's something to consider as we transition back. What do you think of the hashtag, Aaron?
I honestly like it. I think that startup, in a sense, is a good way to label something. There is obviously startup businesses that are just starting and growing. I think small business has its place as well. So obviously there is small creator probably still,
Mm-hmm.
but I think startup is a great way to label someone that's starting, and then you can go from startup to small and then to large. And I mean, once you're past large, hey, send me a picture of your play button because I want it.
Or you can use the TubeBuddy milestones to print your milestones that way. But if you've never seen it, here is the TubeBuddy A/B testing. Chewbacca Sketches says hashtag startup creators. Thank you for the support, Chewbacca Sketches. Love your name, by the way. And Beanie and Chewbacca, I would love to see you guys collab. I think it'd be cool to see two different styles coming together, kind of similar with Kit Slam Arts. But here's the TubeBuddy A/B tests. The way this works is I'm going to say talk. I'm going to type it in, talk less, and it's going to first naturally show me my first three. So I know that why you should travel more, talk less, travel more. I'm going to run this for 30 days. I usually used to do 14 days, but I do 30 now just to kind of expand and have more data. The more data you have, you could argue you can do 60. It has to be an odd number, as you'll see. It must be an even. It can't be an odd number is what I meant to say. It must be an even number greater than 2, so you can do 90. You can go all the way. I've seen people do up to 600. The longest one I've ever seen was 1,000, and I'm like, I don't think I'm waiting till June 2021. Like, that just isn't viable for me. So I think 30 days is, for me right now, it works. Where are hashtag startup creator t-shirts, says Shannon Vlogs. Aaron, would that be a challenge you'd be willing to go with for me? That could be something we work on together. And with Teespring or Spreadshirt, there's a way, and that's why I love these services, to split that revenue for both sides. So I'd be down to do it.
I'd be down. I'm willing.
So what we're going to do, and Aaron, I don't know how much you've used the A/B testing feature.
I have yet to use it once. I am a bad example of a human being.
No, it's not. It's just you're a beginner and a learner too. So what you do is first you select the video. So why you should travel more, talk less, travel more. Next, I'm going to find that file, that fun file we've created earlier, and hope to God that it's under the YouTube requirements. One of the banes of my existence is when it's like 2.1 megabytes, and I'm like, I hate everything. So it's always kind of learning, and this gives you an idea of where all my thumbnails go. And this shows my gaming channel, my Disney days, my collabs. Gives you kind of how I organize it. Ike says she can't even use A/B testing. This is a legend level feature, and it's highly worth it. So for that, I would say it is absolutely worth it. Ike, I will talk to you after this because I thought you had access to it. So as we look for my thumb, I know that I called it Talk Less, Travel More V2. I think I did anyway. Of course, I know I saved it to YouTube thumbs, I think.
You think?
Keywords, right? Talk. All right. Well, maybe I'm an idiot, which is not too far off. But it should be around here. Maybe I saved it to YouTube or to TubeBuddy thumbs, which wouldn't be out of the realm for me. Yeah, right here. That's where I went wrong. So I'm going to quickly drag this to extra storage. Move that where it belongs in the YouTube thumbnails. And of course, organization to a point makes a lot of sense. So I wasn't wrong. I knew what I titled it. I just didn't put it in the right location, which does matter when you're trying to find it later. So I know file management, the ultimate epitome of streams. Save files as medium quality. Never have to worry about going over 2 megabits. Yeah, but I don't know. I like as high as I can go, and I get that beanie. That's just a personal preference. So now we have the new thumbnail. We're going to hit the next button. And of course, these are the general tips. Accurately represents the content. I feel it does. Upload high quality, 1280 by 720 at a 16 by 9. I feel like it's doing that. Use visual cues, colors, shapes, personalities that are consistent with your brand. That AK, super consistent with my brand. I mean, arguably myself, very consistent with my brand. You bright, high contrasting color. Consider close-up of faces. Can't get any more close. Use visually compelling imagery. Why am I so happy in front of this spaceship? Why am I telling you to talk less and travel more? So this, again, I like this because you get an idea of what I was going for with my original thumbnail. So, yeah, it gives you ideas of everything you can do. So, with this, now I'm going to hit next. And then we're going to see our tags. So, if you're changing anything outside, the only thing I'd recommend changing, if you're going to do an A/B test, you can change tags, title, and description. But keep in mind, changing these three will cause YouTube to re-index your video. So what I do is I make sure that I'm only running on thumbnail if I'm doing a thumbnail A/B test. Now I might do a tags title and description A/B test if that video is not performing well in search. But as we learned, this video is performing well in search. It's just not getting a lot of click through. So it's kind of changing this to hopefully get clicked on more. That's what we're aiming for. So as we go forward, we're going to hit next, why you should travel more. We talk about it. If you're branding, if your video is one of a series, consider adding that number to the title. Make sure your title is human readable and something others would feel comfortable sharing on social media. It's very important. Represent your content accurately. Absolutely. And of course, my description. So once this is ready, we're just going to hit submit. Changes you will apply. This will start at Pacific midnight. This is based on the time zone you're in. Yes, I want to start the test. And boom, so this is waiting to start. This gives you an example of a thumbnail that's still in progress, just to give you tests, thumbnails, and I'm testing some tags. But as we can see here, I tested this when this video went live. So the variation is actually getting more views, but this original thumbnail design is actually getting more people to click through. And I called this, proposing to Philip DeFranco. So I feel like this one doesn't do a bad job of that, but this is quite literally me proposing to Philip DeFranco, which a lot of people have congratulated me on. Thank you. We are hunting, moving, and Cabo. So if you guys want to send some support, I'm joking. But no, he was a really great guy to meet. And Aaron, I know you got to meet some creators at VidCon.
Yes, I did.
Who'd you get to meet? Let us know.
I met Jordan Marin, which is, for those of you that don't watch car channels, that's Captain Sparkles Minecraft. I met, I'm struggling on the real name, Sonia Reed. That's OMG, it's Firefox. Again, for those of you that don't follow car YouTubers, also a gamer. And then I met Rumi. That was pretty interesting. That's a singer. And then, what was the third one? Draw with Jazza.
And that just gives you an idea of who Aaron met. Now, Aaron, as a designer, which one of these do you think is more visually compelling to you personally?
Now, see, I'm very split, because while I like the top one for how interesting it is, I immediately see where the Photoshop went wrong. So I have some struggles. But if I was going just without that in mind of how much I like the top one, even though it's the second one, I'd say is probably the best option. Clear view of both faces, absolutely very, very clear. It's close-ups.
And again, this is opinion, but as we see, the data would show otherwise. And that's why sometimes you have to go with what people are responding to. And you could also argue, while both of these talk about meeting Philip DeFranco, I called it proposing to Philip DeFranco because that's technically what I did in the video. And which one hones more true to that? I think the first one.
Yeah.
But it's also
the first
interesting.
one's definitely better.
And if you look at which one has done more on views here, the variation has done more on views, but you could also argue that that is just based on, the days it was uploaded, things like that. So you want to really compare the click-through rate here. And I might run this test even longer and I might make a second test and run it even longer, so I know when it's statistically significant. And what that means is that the data has shown me that this one works better than this one. So I might do a second test, which is why I'm starting to run tests longer. But if we look at like subs gained, variation gained me more subs, gained me more shares. But what we're focusing on with A/B testing is views from thumbnails appearing aside other videos. The goal demographic for this thumbnail would be to show up on side of Phil's vlog channel, right? That's where I would love for it to be suggested, because all of a sudden I'm tapping into his audience, which has a lot of overlap with my own personal like beliefs and such on YouTube. So what I'm focusing on is I'm doing well on search, but I also want to be focused on that suggested, which is why the higher the click-through rate is in percentage, the higher you are to be more suggested. Now, I think that, the data is showing me this. I'm going to run this again, maybe work with Aaron to tweak this to be a little better. But, even for a rough, quick Photoshop edit, this ended up doing a little better. Andrew, could a poorly performing alternate variation actually affect your overall CTR? So Beanie is asking a great question, and essentially, just so I make sure that I have this question right, Beanie, you're asking is if I'm doing an A/B test and I made a variation, and the variation starts performing bad, could that affect my overall CTR rating on my analytics? Is that just to make sure I understand the question? And while that's going on, I think we are going to open this up to channel reviews. Aaron, thank you so much for your help on the thumbnail. I've learned so much I'm going to use off air. And guys, follow Aaron on social media. Aaron, I want to, while we are getting people interested in the channel reviews, would you mind if I pull up your website, your work, just to give people a little taste of what you do? Because, guys, it is good.
Go for it.
I didn't think you'd be like, how dare you? And Aaron, if you could, drop a link in the chat so people can check it out with us, so they can see it themselves. Of course, I'm always a fan of Aaron. Aaron does great work. But Beanie, waiting just to make sure I understand your question before I answer it, because understanding is good. There's Aaron's portfolio. Highly recommend you check it out. I'm going to be taking a look at it myself. But Beanie, that is it. And if you want to do A/B testing, guys, you got to get TubeBuddy. TubeBuddy is an amazing program, amazing software. I'm lucky enough to work for an amazing company. You may see it behind me on my camera. That's how you know it's the TubeBuddy camera. I have 2 tripods, new background, trying to make it look. So to explain, A/B tests give half the viewers one thumbnail and half another. So if one half click less than the other, the video overall CTR would be affected. So for that month, yes, but because the way YouTube works and the way TubeBuddy's collecting data, you know which thumbnail will have better CTR at the end of your test. And what we found while doing A/B tests is that it takes kind of the medium between the two. And if you know the click-through rate difference early enough, you can stop the test and just add the variation. So it's always down to what your data shows you. Because when it comes to data, it could be so many hypotheticals. So we really kind of want to focus on more concrete bits of information. So showing this, Aaron, are these newer photos?
Some of them are newer, some of them are a little older. I recently did a little bit of an update.
And
I
if
have
Jeff
more
is in
going up soon.
here, I know he'll appreciate this. Jeff actually does some car photography, and you two I would love to see a collaboration with. That would actually be a really cool thing to see. You can kind of check out some of Aaron's work, see some of the techniques he told us. If you want to learn more, Aaron, your website is so good. And I love how every image, it tells a story. You see these things, you see amazing. Cool. So potentially affects short-term results, but improves long-term results for evergreen content. Absolutely, Beanie. And that's kind of what you got to remember going into that, is that what am I caring more about, short-term or long-term? So keep that in mind. And if you're going for, and this is something I tell people, because you got to remember this, that suggested videos is short-term game. It may have a shelf life of a year max. And again, suggested, there's not enough data there, and how the algorithm works can change on a dime. Going for search is going for a long-term solid commitment where you can guarantee views. Going for suggested is a tactic that can work very well short-term. It's going to be up to you how it performs for the long term. And if you want to see how that A/B test result goes, I will be posting on Twitter, so you can follow me on Twitter, or you can come back and I might reveal it in a live. All things we can do. But Aaron, amazing website. Cool to see. Again, let us know if you want channel reviews in the live chat. It's really cool to see. Aaron, what are you trying to do when you take photos of these vehicles? Are you just trying to show them off? Are you trying to tell a story? What is your thought process?
I mean, a lot of it comes down to the passion that I have, and you've known me for a while. You know that generally automotive and aviation is something I have a huge passion for as a photographer, and my goal is to be able to convey in an image the beauty that I see looking at it myself. And if I can do that, I'm absolutely satisfied. I try to focus on what makes the cars unique. So you'll notice on, say, the Ford GT that I try to photograph from the lowest point because the Ford GT is very, very low. It's very angular. I get very close to the exhaust to see the wing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, a lot of these cars that I photograph, I can almost recite the statistics for because that's just how in depth I get with the knowledge of exotic cars. Like I've kind of kept you a little bit in the loop of what I was up to recently. How I gave my friend kind of the experience of his life for his birthday. I let him drive an exotic car, and that the video is going to come soon to my channel. Short plug there, and it won't be the last time it'll be seen either. Hint, hint.
Awesome.
But that's where my passions lied for a long time. And so when I get to go out there and do photos like this, it's great. And a lot of it, especially when it's at an event such as this one, um, it's very important to me to show the community, show people that are interested. And I mean, I'll send some of these photos off to the people that run the events, and it's interesting what they'll say is like, "Oh my God, you can see how interested people are."
And I think that's a great point. I mean, you see the passion that is there just from people knowing what you do, and that's incredible. And I think that if you convey it well, that's something you can share with the world, and that's your unique take. And that's why doing things like that is important. So I want to start off the channel reviews with the first super chat, which again, Dimmy, thank you so much. We got is Dimmy's channel, which I thought I was subscribed. If I'm not subscribed on this channel, it might be because I'm subscribed either on TubeBuddy or my gaming channel or my other channels. I'm on too many channels and I can't remember where I've subscribed to people. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. And right off the bat, we see a very clear mission statement from Dimmy. Let your passion be your drive. I like that a lot. I like that quote. What I would say is, if you can find a way to do this, is trying to incorporate yourself doing some filmmaking or showing some of the shots you've gotten. Showcase some of that passion you mentioned about in your banner. And creative filmmaking, all right, give me more. Why do you create film? Why are you creating films? When do you publish these films? Like, let me know. Make it easy for me to know. Aaron, what are your thoughts?
I personally I love it, and a lot of it for me is the message of just it couldn't be more real. There's this amazing company I follow called Garage Goals that has a shirt called Passion Driven, and I mean, I just love how that's put. I couldn't do it better myself.
Mm-hmm. But visually, what are your thoughts on the banner?
Visually, uh, like you said, it could use a little bit of imagery, play around with it, show some of your work off. I think that honestly, white on orange, maybe not the best pathway, especially, when it's a bit of a styled typeface right there.
Mm-hmm.
So that would kind of be my suggestion as far as that goes.
And I get that. And again, the reason I mention putting your face in is because when I see your uploads, I see your face constantly on your thumbnails, right? But when it comes to your banner, I'm not seeing that consistency. And is this kind of the logo or the image you're going for to be your branding? Because if so, what I would recommend is kind of focusing a little bit more on making sure this kind of branding is visual, because I do think it could work. And I think maybe even if you took this bit and made that your logo and you found a way to put your initials like DH or something, that could easily be your branding. Because as it is, I see the orange here and I think that looks pretty decent. But what I'd like to see more of is you here. I see the Cookie Couture channel. Welcome. Always good to have you. We are in the channel review portion of the stream. Of course, super chats take first priority, which is why we're taking a look at Dimmy again. Thank you so much for the super chat. So, I've seen a few of your videos. I've seen this one. I've seen this one for sure. And I think that when we take a deeper look at the branding, Aaron, do you see what I mean? Where it's a little misguided.
Well, like, see, his brand from the thumbnails that I'm seeing right now, his brand looks like himself. By the way, it looks a little bit like Guy Fieri, which is a compliment, by the way. I think that if that's gonna be the brand, then I mean it's a good brand right there. You can use it, and I think he's got a very unique face, and it's good. So why not carry that into the banner? He's got it in his avatar. He's got it on his videos. It's just missing in one area there.
Absolutely. And I would say, you know, we're just kind of looking at a branding value here. If we take a look at, if you love filmmaking IGTV, this is why you won't get success as a filmmaker rant. Let's take a look at this video more specifically. Now, as I see here, I will first look at this video, like support other creatives. I want to take a look at, you know, rankings. This is why you won't get success as a filmmaker. So let's take a look at the analytics side of this. So people are searching this. You're actually above Evan Carmichael, which is pretty good. This keyword isn't too competitive and has enough search volume. Pretty good here. Why you won't get success. So here's the problem is, like, you're talking about why you won't get success, which is what you're ranking for. And then you talk about get success as a filmmaker. So maybe how to get success as a filmmaker would be a natural, you know, on these how to. And how to, I get the idea of how to be a successful filmmaker, but this isn't the same thing as what you titled it, right? So I think it's important that you make sure that you're being consistent on what you're saying here, because I don't necessarily think personally how to be a successful filmmaker is the same thing of why you won't get success as a filmmaker. And what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I would agree. I think that the tags overall need to go with the title, just like you said. I think that's a good title, though, because it's
Yeah,
thought-provoking and it's going to make someone want to watch what he's talking about.
absolutely.
But even though he's ranking for get success as a filmmaker, let's say someone searches that up and sees his video, they don't want to know why you won't be successful. They want to know why you will be successful. So is that something you necessarily want to rank for? Probably not, but arguable.
And again, it's always up to the artist's intention. He might want to rank for it. So if he does, then that's good. But I do agree. This title is compelling. And obviously he has the click-through rate on the data here. But it's interesting. Let's take a look. Very well said, Dimmy. Cannot read that, but I'm assuming it's positive. I don't think he would give it a heart if Dimmy didn't agree with it. Shannon agrees with us. Looks very good, very unique. So we see some understanding of the kind of process you need to do for branding, so that's good. What I would say ultimately, didn't mean to click that, is just make sure that you're being consistent on what you're titling, what you're tagging, all that. So this is why you won't get success as a filmmaker. I love that. I think it's very good. I like how there's closed captions. I would just say, I don't know if this is you testing manually the click-through rate, but if this kind of click-through rate works, maybe more than this instead of this. But if this works better, maybe more of this. And again, keep testing, keep trying. Storytelling techniques in films, you know, we're seeing different things. And what I'm noticing is, kind of looking at your uploads, I'm having a little bit of a hard time differentiating like the story techniques. So maybe kind of coming up with a style like that's more clear that I can tell the difference. Like, what makes your rants different than your storytelling techniques, and what makes your storytelling techniques different than your short films, and all of these things, right? So that's something to consider. Beanie says, don't do this if you want to be a successful as a film. Don't do this if you want success as a filmmaker. Beanie, that's a great title suggestion. and that might be something he can try. I mean, since this video is pretty new, that might be something he can consider. However, I don't know if he wants to reindex it by doing that. So it's always, take that into consideration. I would say that's where A/B testing, you could test the difference in title and tag performance, and each time it will reindex, but that could be something you test. All right, Aaron, overall, what are you going to give as a grade?
I'm gonna give it a B.
All right. Well, as you know, F minus. Come on, where am I featured? Joking. I would say I agree with you. I'll give him a B minus just because of the tagging. And I think that I know he's very creative and that he could come up with a little bit better of the title, especially kind of what Beanie recommended. And, just maybe be a little bit more creative with the thumbnails and the branding here. But that could easily go to a B plus and then higher ranking. So just an idea. Yeah, re-indexing is the gambling of YouTube. Absolutely, Beanie. But that gives you an idea of kind of what we think, Dimmy. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you so much for the support, guys. Check out the channel. I'll make sure, Aaron, could you do me a favor and put a link to his channel in the chat, because Dimmy has a great channel worth checking out, and check it out if you haven't already. We're going to take a look at the Cookie Couture in the meantime, and I have taken a look at her channel before as a little heads up. I don't think I've looked at Dimmy's channel on the review portion. So that is something to take into consideration. So while that is going, while Aaron is doing that, we will bring up her channel now. And Aaron, I don't know if you were on while you like it. Ike says, I differ my videos from the outline color of my thumbnails, like orange equals manga, cyan equals anime, and purple equals VN, which, Aaron, I'm sure you know what that means. Visual novel, right? Am I right? I think I'm right.
Let me read this. Yes.
All right.
I do know what that means.
So I can see that the Cookie Couture has been growing. I like the changes we make. English and Spanish videos every Tuesday and Friday mornings. The only thing I will say, by having a channel like this, where if you're doing videos in both English and Spanish, that you are going to naturally split your audience, because I don't understand Spanish, but I understand English. And if I don't understand English, but I understand Spanish, then naturally I'm going to be splitting. So does that mean that half your videos are in English and the other half are in Spanish, or does that mean that they're just translated? What's kind of the look? Welcome, G-Star. Doing very well. Happy to have you in the live stream, talking with my good friend Aaron and the amazing people in chat like Ike, yourself, the Cookie Couture, PSPR Paranormal, Beanie Draws, Shannon Vlogs, Dimmy, all the people who stopped by. Doug was in here for a brief moment, so I do appreciate it. So thank you all so much for just kind of checking it out. So I love this, where flavor and design collide. Great mission statement. I like that I know every Tuesday and Fridays and at the morning, so it gives me an idea. And I think that's great. I think it's, I get a taste of you. I get to kind of see what you're doing. And, for branding, I like how this is your logo, and I can see it very clearly in most of your videos, as well as kind of what Ike was going over, and kind of what I recommend is different colors for different things. So we see pink for like mermaids and how to do, maybe it's cookies. I'm kind of seeing that as the theme here. And then cookie ideas for housewarming gifts. Doug says he's still working. I think I need to be more organized on that. Some English and some Spanish. So essentially what's going to be happening is you're going to be splitting your audience. Because if I'm watching a TV show, and let's say it's in English, and then halfway through the show, they're like, all right, it's Russian now. Good luck. I'm going to be like, okay, I guess I stop watching.
Also, I don't see an identifier for what's English and what's not.
That's a good point. That's a very good point, Aaron. And branding matters. Lucky art doesn't necessarily have a country-specific language. Art is its own visual language. Absolutely. What I would say, Aaron, is I'm seeing it in Spanish. But you see, Beanie, that's the point Aaron made, is that I do agree that art doesn't have a language specifically. I wouldn't mind multiple languages as long as there are subtitles, but I prefer the titles that are all in one language. And of course, I think we can see different things. I would say subtitles are a great way. How many Spanish people speak English? I make some video in full English and some in full Spanish. So what I would say is kind of just keep testing it, and remember that you might accidentally split your audience that way. And it'll be hard, because like even Smosh and some larger channels have English, all their videos in English and then all their videos in Spanish. And what they do is they subtitle it for the other. And YouTube right now really wants you to kind of focus on one thing more than ever, because it makes it easier for them to index it into the algorithm and all that fun stuff, into the search results. So what I'm noticing is ideas to decorate a cookie crown or crown cookie. And then what I'm seeing is your most successful one is in English. Your second most successful one is in Spanish. So I'm seeing kind of a pattern here for your popular uploads. I would just make sure that you always have the Cookie Couture is saying, should I have to look at my analytics and then decide what language should I do for it. Beanie said that would be a great idea, and I kind of agree, because I can only go on fact here. If you're able to keep an audience and keep it growing, I would say take a look at, because YouTube has a great thing that not a lot of people know of, and I'll just quickly show it off here. You can actually group your videos within analytics. So if I open this in a new tab, hit this. So one thing I'm trying to get better at, and I don't know how I will quickly do this, is that YouTube actually, there's some things they don't want people to see, and it's kind of remembering that as I'm going live to make it a little easier. I don't think it's a problem. I have no issue sharing it. It's just trying to remember what YouTube says they want done. So, all right. As we switch back to my desktop, I would suspect half the audience is American and half is Spanish, possibly more American. I also suspect a lot of your Spanish audience know English anyway, says Beanie. So, of course, as I did that, I did the exact opposite of what I wanted to do. Gives you an idea of just kind of, what I'm doing for the sake of doing it. Transition. So, you can group. This is the hard part that I don't want to touch. I need my mouse. You know what? I'll just put, I can put Aaron there. Aaron, you'll help me out here. Congratulations, Aaron. You're going to be put here. Yay, Aaron. Yes, Beanie, you are right. Half and half.
Whatever you do, don't scroll.
Pretty much. So if you can you can create a video group and you can create a playlist group. So you can easily put all of your videos. So like, let's say you have all your videos in a Spanish one, and then you have all of your videos. So you can compare it, right? So let's say I compare VidCon of last year to VidCon of this year, right? So this is last year's VidCon. And I can compare these two groups now. And again, not a lot of people know of this function. So then, playlist in group 2, and then I can save this, right? And then I can create a playlist group. VidCon vlogs all time, right? Let's just say that's what I'll call this, right? And what this will do for me is it will let me know how these playlists are performing, what are the highest performing in these videos, what is doing well, and it gives you an idea, and you can break this down because of the specific we're in. You can kind of see your watch time, you can see your audience retention, and you can see it for more recent uploads. Obviously, it's in the last 28 days, so this might be make more sense to do lifetime of this, right? And it'll give me more information, it'll give me more data, and it'll show me what's kind of worked the best here. So what this can do is, Beanie says, the Cooking Tour, shame you don't have access to the community tab. You could ask a poll asking your Spanish audience they also speak English, or you're alienating a specific language. So this is where you can kind of see, this is where I would say is check your translations tab. And for me, obviously, I don't translate my videos, but if you're putting in those closed captions, that's one way. And you can also break it down to demographics, right? You can see where most of the people who are watching this content come from. And that would be the best differentiator for you. And of course, it's giving me a fun, not working message. Gotta love YouTube when it doesn't work. Maybe it'll work for, of course, it's not going to work for me when I need it to. But you can individually do this by video. Sometimes grouping doesn't always work, as you're seeing now. But that's something just to test, right? So let's take a look at a video that is a little older, right? Different ways to add sprinkles to my cookies. So let's take a look at where you're ranking, right? How to add sprinkles to decorated cookies. How to add sprinkles to cookies. Different ways to add sprinkles to cookies. Different ways to add sprinkles to decorated cookies. I would say make this, how to add sprinkles to cookies, since you're ranking for that, make that what you're targeting. Because different ways to add sprinkles to my cookies is not the same thing as this. Also, Don't put your hashtags up here. I keep seeing this mistake. YouTube is still using the description. Put your hashtags at the bottom. They're not using hashtags first. They're still using the description. This may change in the future, but move this down here because they're still indexing using the first 200 words. So make sure that when you're doing this, you're not putting your hashtags so up front. Make sure they're down below. So if I am to actually check out, different ways, if I wanted to check this in a new window, right? As I can see, now they are getting rid of the hashtags, which is good, but I still recommend putting them further down. I think they've actually may have changed it, and as we're seeing in real time. But this different ways to add sprinkles to cookies is very highly searched, and it doesn't have that much competition, and you're killing it here. So make that the title. And obviously this thumbnail is probably very good, and I would click on it. I think it's very well designed. I see clear branding, and it lets me easily see it. But keep that in mind. You're doing well for this, so I would say focus on what this video is actually about. And then I have some questions such as like sprinkle cookie ideas. So maybe different ways, or since we're calling this how to add sprinkles to cookies, right? Or maybe different ways to add sprinkles to my cookies, since different ways to add sprinkles to cookies is what we're focusing on. Maybe a way to do sprinkle cookie ideas is different ideas to add sprinkles to cookies, kind of the same mindset, and see if that works. And of course, you can use the suggested tab to see how that performs, and all of that is very important to note. Aaron, what are your thoughts?
Overall, I love that channel so much. And it's not even just the fact that it's cookies, but my gosh, the art is just perfection. And I mean, like, you do a lot better job reviewing like SEO and all that stuff than me, because that's kind of your specialty. Me, I see beautiful art and I'm just like, can I give it an A?
And that's fair, and that's where you kind of come in. And I would like to thank whoever purchased the "If I Can, You Can Too" shirt. Got an email while that happened. I do appreciate it. Always appreciated. Back to you, the Cookie Couture. I agree with Aaron. Really clear branding, and that's one thing I commented on that I liked a lot. I would just say make sure that you are being really specific on what you're titling, what you're tagging, what you're describing. And then make sure you kind of look at, how is my audience receiving my videos? Because you don't really want to split the audience. And that's something to keep in mind. My niece make them for me. Well, that's awesome. Your niece is very, very talented. And I would say it's time for the grade. Aaron, what do you give the Cookie Couture?
Immediate A.
Man, Aaron doesn't believe in A pluses, apparently. He just gives an A.
I mean, you did point out a few things that could obviously do with some change, so I can't give it an A plus, but
well, I'll give it a little A, like in Aaron's name, Aaron.
Oh God. The meme lives.
But I'm gonna give it an A minus because of the split. Because of, again, when I first saw you, you have improved so much in understanding SEO. You're doing way better on that, and I think you're doing great. Just that little bit where I see just a lack of understanding, just not really honing in on what your title and what your tag and what you're describing your video as, is what's holding me from that A plus. Those little mistakes I know you can fix, and I know you can do better with, and I just want to see it. And use your data, go on the fact, and if you feel, I would say you can still do Spanish subtitles and see if that works. And Cookie Couture says, I got a better grade. Of course, if you come back, if you keep coming, you can improve. If you come back, hashtag startup creators. We're all learning, we're all growing. Aaron has taught me amazing things in this stream, yet alone tonight. So I will do one final call for channel reviews. If you're interested in, this is your final call. Aaron, what do you think about the channels we've gotten to see tonight?
I mean, considering most of them have been creatives in one way or another, I'm a very happy man.
What do you think about the new thumbnail design we worked on? Do you hope it'll do better?
I have strong hope. YouTube loves to prove me wrong, but we'll find out.
And again, here's the thing. You get the thumbnail design wrong here, you can try again. That's the beauty of what we're doing. There's nothing wrong with not succeeding the way you wanted. But there's a lot wrong with just not trying again. So it seems like the PSPR Paranormal Pursuit is looking for another review. I know I reviewed you last time, but we have Aaron on the stream, so maybe, just maybe, Aaron will see something different. Aaron will see something a little more interesting. I haven't really done anything new since the last time you looked. I don't think. I can't remember, says Beanie. Fair point. So, PSPR Paranormal Pursuit. I will review the video once again. Good. Thank you. So, but if Aaron wants to check it out and roast, feel free, says Beanie. So, challenge by Beanie. So, Abnormal Pursuit. I do like the new banner. I think it is different, and I think it looks better. I would say maybe fix this icon on your globe. It's only scary if you let it. The only thing I don't know is what can I expect from your channel? When do you upload? The very basic things we always look for. Because it's great that I see who you two are, but I don't know what to expect when you upload. You know? What do you think on that, Aaron?
I would overall agree. It's got the brand, it's got faces. It's kind of usually what I look for. The thumbnails so far, like that one featured thumbnail right there, I think looks very, very good. It's well lit, everything's nice.
Which one?
The main thumbnail right there, the featured video, that's great.
This one?
Yeah, it looks good. Well, actually, not a thumbnail because it's already playing. That's what tripped me up.
Well, Aaron thinks the new camera looks good because they said new camera.
Looks good.
So what I will say is branding. I just give me that little bit more. I see that this Paranormal Pursuit is kind of what you have here. Maybe make that your logo and things like that. So consider that. Cookie Couture asks one last question. I think I can't subscribe to more channels because I think I am subscribed to more than the subscribers I have. Will I get penalty for that? You're allowed to subscribe to as many channels as you want. It's just if you don't watch all of them, technically it could hurt them, but it's kind of up to you. So what I will say is I'm not going to really be watching the video. I'm more focused on the SEO and just like the thumbnail design. I will say that I see you kind of go for this night vision look. And I see on these new ones, are you testing a newer look? What's the click-through rate on these? Do you know? Because that's what I would say. Because if this is doing well, maybe you keep on that. But if it's not, that's something you need to consider. Aaron, what are your thoughts on like the kind of dark look you have?
It's not very visible, and also the green on red is not very visible. There's a lot of legibility lost from the way the thumbnail's done, and I would heavily suggest revisiting the way that they're done just from a legibility perspective, because like I'm looking over screen share, for example, but I've got it full screen on a 4K monitor and I can't read a single word on there.
Yeah, so remember, other people will see it in a different way, and I think that's good to know. One thing I don't like, and this is just based on a channel thing, I would always say have horizontal playlists, because this kind of playlist doesn't necessarily easily, like, it doesn't show me a lot of the content here. I'm also noticing a very lack of playlist descriptions. So, like, I don't see a playlist description here. I don't see it here. Those help a playlist rank. So keep that in mind. I would also see how this thumbnail performs, because the views aren't bad, especially considering the channel size and all that. So we're going to take a look at just kind of the tagging strats. And I do think the camera's good, but also is the lighting better? Because sometimes you can do better lighting. But what I'm seeing here, and this is again what I saw last week, is Haunted Railroad Disaster of 1876 investigation. This is what you're talking about. Haunted Railroad Disaster isn't relevant. Haunted Railroad isn't doing well. Ghost Hunters isn't doing well. Real Spirit Speaking, Talk to the Dead. None of this is ranking. And again, you're going to have a hard time ranking for this because it's too fragmented. Like, you're not going to rank for Ohio. You're not going to rank for SB7. You're not going to rank for these things. You're going to rank for long tail specific stuff. Come with us as we communicate with spirits from the train disaster. really not relevant to what you called it. So we explore the haunted railroad disaster of 1876, or we do an investigation on the haunted railroad disaster of 1876 in Ashtabula, Ohio. And then you add more of this, you add more of these details, because as it is, the only thing you're ranking for is 3 tags and paranormal group Erie, Pennsylvania. This is the only thing you're really ranking for, and that's when you really hone true to what you called your video. And again, I can guarantee you, if I just add haunted to this, I'm going to see probably you rank for this. Boom. But also take a look at this. There's not a lot of people searching for this. A lot of people, there's a decent amount of competition, but not a lot of people are searching for this. So it's becoming, how can you make this searchable, right? And maybe they just don't know about it. Now, I see you went for railroad disaster. The railroad disaster, which you're actually ranking for, again, it's just kind of low search results for it. But let's look right here, looking at what someone else called it. Someone else called it the Ashtabula train disaster 1876, right? How searchable is that? Comparatively, still low, but it's another way you can go after it. Again, sometimes you're creating content because you want to talk about it and it may not be searchable, and that's fine. Then I would say focus on being suggested here. And how can I do that? But again, you can still be searched and you can still show up for people who care about the subject. It's just, I'm seeing here, some people are calling it the Ashtabula Bridge disaster, right? So this is all around the same thing. And this isn't too competitive and has enough search to making it worth it. So this is a little better. And again, it's just different ways to talk about the same thing. Because what I'm seeing is you're splitting way too much, again, on what is my focus. You're focusing on 2-word phrases, which they're vaguely specific. They're not as, I would say the worst are Ohio, SB, and Ghost Researcher, because those you're just not going to do it. And again, I don't see your channel name. Where's PSPR Paranormal Pursuit? So follow the best practices. Put your entire title as a tag, because again, your audience loves this, which is great, but you want to go outside of your audience. Good night, Janelle's MP. Good to have you here with us. But consider that when you go here, because you have a good audience, and I can see that people are liking Very Tragic Stories, some great responses on the P7B7. Again, people are liking it, but it's not going past your audience. So you're creating content that your audience likes, which is great. But you also maybe want to consider things outside of your audience, because that's how you grow. I tell people this all the time. If you're creating content that you would like, that your audience likes, that's great. However, if only you and your audience are looking for it, you can't be surprised when it's not reaching outside your audience, right? So maybe something you could do is how to get into ghost hunting. I think that'd be very relevant to your video. How we use the equipment on location, and then you can show the video of you on location, and then you have a piece of content that inspires people to watch more. And all of this are just suggestion. Aaron, what are your thoughts? Kind of just seeing the metadata, seeing kind of the branding here.
I definitely think that it needs more to brand it to the channel, especially on the thumbnails. We talked about legibility. I think you gave a very good overview on how to work the SEO, as far as making sure the description's proper, making sure the tags are relevant. I'm not sure how you're going to rank for Ohio, for example, as a tag. But that's kind of knowledge you've gone over. I think there's room for improvement, but the content certainly looks good.
Yeah, and the audience is responding well to it, which is good. It's just, I want you to expand past your core audience. I want you to keep building that, and that's kind of how you do it. So, Aaron, when it comes to a grade, what do you give it?
I give it a C+.
C+, can't go wrong there. I'm going to give it a C, mostly because I think there's a lot to be improved. Because again, actually, I'm going to give it a C+ as well, because you have a really good understanding of your core community, but I want you to expand past that. I want you to get views past your core community, because that's really where you're going to shine. That's really where I want when I come back here, people immediately know what to expect, what you do, how they found you, things like that. Because as it is, it's a little confused. And if we're confused, your audience might get confused. And I want you to grow. So overall, I think you're doing very well. I just think, really hone in on that SEO. I think a lot of what you're doing is pretty searchable. So just keep focusing on that. And remember, just because you know what it's called doesn't mean an outside perspective. And also maybe consider what really happened at the haunted railroad disaster of 1876. That sounds like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Is there a cover up? And again, our minds go, wait a minute, there was a train disaster of 1876. It's haunted. What? Immediately, intrigue. And it's searchable. What really happened at the railroad disaster of 1876? It's honest. It's a little clickbaity, but it's honest clickbait. You really answer the question of what, or at least, obviously, I haven't seen the video, but if it fits, that is a way you can do that. And so, Paranormal Pursuit says, thanks a lot of help. Again, I'm hard because I want you to do well. I want to make sure that we go in understanding what you're doing right and what you can improve on, because a lot of times people, they want to know. And I think there's a lot here. You have a very good grasp of community, but let's go. Final review of the night. You ready, Aaron? He challenged you to review it.
Oh boy.
Aaron, I'm going to let you take over because...
Beanie, he done messed up because he got me trying to roast him while I'm hungry.
Ooh.
Oh boy. Honestly, I don't know why he wants me to roast him, because Beanie knows that I like his stuff. I especially like the fact that Draw with Jazza is on his channel's I like page.
Hey!
And so is Tube Buddy and you. There we go.
A+.
I like that. A+. No, really though, A+, because
genuinely,
Beanie, we've reviewed Beanie in the past, and I believe I gave the same rating back then that I'm going to give now, which is A+. And Beanie knows what he's doing, and he's doing it right.
And this is where I can get technical. How is he doing? Here. Pretty good, actually. Indominus Rex Spinosaurus Hybrid. Very good. Beanie Draws doing well. Indominus Rex Hybrid, maybe you go into the drawing. So maybe call it drawing a Indominus Rex Hybrid. Might do a little better. Drawing a Spinosaurus Hybrid might do a little better. Okay, now what is going on? Had to take a phone call. Jeffrey, you need to work with Aaron. He does car photography. Aaron, put your portfolio in the description for Jeff. He does car photography as well. Both really good creators. I think you two could have a lot of fun together. So again, Beanie's really getting it. Creature design drawings could just be a catch-all tag he's going for. Jurassic World Hybrid Dinosaur, again, could be a catch-all. I'm not too sure there. Because again, we're seeing a lot of understanding and then just a few differences. I would say instead of maybe how to create a hybrid dinosaur, let's go to Tag Explorer here and go to how to draw a hybrid dinosaur and see if we see any results for Beanie here. And I'm seeing the Gaming Beaver. We're seeing some different people. We're seeing Danny the dinosaur drawer show up. But I definitely think, there we are, right there. Well, we see some of Beanie, and here we are again. So this is just, just by knowing that tag, right? I see you show up for it. So we also have it right here. So he ranks number 7, but I don't know if the create is necessarily what I would go for. I get it's slightly different, but it's really just not showing. So how to draw a hybrid dinosaur. Maybe we go for hybrid dinosaur, and then we add in, I'm not really sure. I think Beanie has a pretty good understanding here. So Beanie's saying, could you take a look at my older 2 cartoon Rexes? Not sure if they're too similar. Of my tags weren't great in those. So Beanie, I can try. Hashtag I can try. Are you which one specifically are you talking about? Happy New Year, T-Rex versus Indominus? These two, I'm assuming? Not sure. That's a little vague. Congrats on your channel, Beanie Draws. Again, Beanie has a great channel. Highly recommend checking him out. Aaron, you are getting some comments in the chat. Aaron's name is Aaron, Aaron, as we call him in our friend circle.
Yep, that's me, Aaron Goldstein.
And he is one thick B. If you know that meme, thank you.
I'm actually looking at Jeffrey's channel right now as well. I've got the channel split screened. I've got Beanie on one and Jeffrey on the other.
Not the best title. Tried to make it sound different. Beanie, if you can let us know that kind of final thing you wanted us to take a look at, it'll be a little easier. And while that's going, thank you everyone who's made it this far. If you made it this far, let us know with hashtag #YouCanToo in that live chat. Again, this is some of the downtime of doing, But again, thumbnails are great. I like seeing more of the Beanie draw in the corner. I love the Beanie draws to the side. I think it looks good. Contrast is there, visually interesting. Always makes me. It's called More Roar. Okay. Unless I can post a direct link. Beanie, you can go for it. But I'll also look it up. More Roar Beanie draws. And this is why tagging is important. I'm assuming this is it. Who is the one on the chat talking so I can thank him? I think she's talking about you, Aaron.
Yeah, that would be me. Becomeaprime, Aaron. The one that's name is in blue, also Beanie's in blue.
Beanie,
but...
did you see this? I think someone made a playlist for your stuff. That's cool. Like you had someone else made a playlist for your stuff of things they like from you. So yeah, I'd consider figuring out who they are because that's really cool. And let's see how many views they have. 131. So when people type in that's showing up. That's really awesome.
Wait, is Jeffrey asking us to tear him apart? I'm confused.
Well, Jeffrey is asking us to take a look at his. So, I mean, going back to your question, Beanie, which was, could you take a look at my older cartoon Rexes? Not sure if they're too similar. Of my tags weren't great in those.
Tags definitely need to be
tags
improved.
Just aren't there. So MOAR Roar more 4K T-Rex stylized drawing time lapse. I'm not sure if this is something that is specifically like to a challenge or something. I'm not sure. If I type it in, maybe.
Also, is that 4K?
Yeah, that's what it says. More Roar. Let's type that in, right? So Beanie, I mean, tags aren't that great. I would recommend kind of really. It's because I draw so many cartoon T-Rexes. I find it hard to individualize them, title and tag wise. So what I would do is that this is a little different. So this is I would call this, I'd maybe focus on the 4K T. I would call this 4K T-Rex drawing time lapse. Really focusing on that, and let's type that in. 4K T-Rex drawing time lapse. This might have some searchability, right? It's got some decent. It's not the worst. It's not the best. I mean, this keyword isn't too competitive and has enough search volume making it worth targeting, and you already own some results here. And I see you here. I would just say maybe hone in on the T-Rex time-lapse market, which is clearly there. So that's what I would recommend for you, Beanie. Beanie, I would say from a branding and graphic styling point, for tagging on older videos, just a little more work on the older videos, because here's something that people don't understand. Your old videos matter. In order to get view velocity, they take a look at your old videos and your new and see how well they're performing. If your older videos are underperforming comparatively to the newer videos, you're not necessarily going to have much view velocity, which is why you really want to focus on those older videos. Nice. Always learning more with you, Andrew. Beanie, that's why I try to do my best to teach you. Remember, if I can, you can too. I would say I'm going to have to call it quits on the channel reviews for tonight. Aaron and I both have very busy schedules. However, I would say we'll end it with Jeff, just so we don't miss out there. And I'm completely biased, and I'm going to give you an F already, Jeff, because you didn't ask me to collaborate in video marketing world. You were talking about collaborations, and we just didn't do it together, and it hurts my feelings a lot. And I'm just going to let you know that now. And so it hurt my feelings, Jeff. So F minus. But Aaron, I'm going to let you take a look.
I mean, I'm gonna joke real quick and say F minus because he's shooting Nikon. It's a complete joke, by the way. But uh, you know me. I have to hate on Nikon for just a quick minute. I think that this is perfection. It's a great display of his work. It's a great display of him. Uh, is the subscribe thing necessary on the banner? Maybe not, but that's just personal nitpicking, honestly. I love how he's got his videos color coded. I think that's very important. Or at least it looks like it's color coded.
It would appear to be with the blue triangle, and then we see different colors. You are right.
So like, see, this is how it should be done. It almost feels like a wildlife channel feeling mixed with a photographer, which I think is just the perfect combination.
Jeff says changing to Sony.
Changing to Sony? Okay, you're forgiven. I'm a Canon guy, but still, I can't diss Sony because Sony's doing a very good job right now.
That's very fair. I like this. The only thing, and this is just a very nitpick, because again, you're doing a lot right, Jeff. When can I expect this? When can I expect your pursuit of photography? You're keeping me wondering. I don't have a clear answer. F minus. Where am I? He doesn't feature. He doesn't want to collab with me. He rarely features me. Jeff, do you hate me? Is this what you're trying to tell me?
Now I know what it reminds me of. Have you ever heard of a guy used to be on the Travel Channel called Andrew Zimmerman? I don't know why, but I get that feel from this artwork, and it's really good.
I think he has really good understanding of thumbnail, and I think that having very clear photography, this vlogging, this storytelling, this is great. And this gives me a clear understanding of what to expect with it. I like how it's similar design, and I can easily tell it's him, but just from whatever these colors are, I easily know what to expect. That's beautiful. Very well done. However, some of what I'm seeing is photography tips from a master artist, 5 things you must have. 5 things you must have. So this 5 things photographers must have. Again, this is you're splitting the focus from is this for photographers? Is this for YouTubers? I'm not sure. Focus down. What is aperture? Understanding aperture. I would say the series number, this isn't relevant to the title. It's relevant for the thumbnail, but not necessarily for this. Learn photography terms, I think, is a really cool idea. I would just say, again, the series doesn't matter in the title as much as it does here. And again, understanding photography terms. Learn photography terms. That's great. However, I want to take a kind of look at the SEO side, because this should be very searchable. Again, just looking here, I know looking at you have very good visual background. So what are we ranking for? Nothing, which is what I was afraid of. So understanding photography terminology. Let's take a look at how competitive this is. Not very. So again, in theory, you should be able to rank for this. But also, how many people are looking for this? Understanding photography terms, right? Let's go for that. Let's shorten it. Let's see if we have more searching here. A little higher, and you might rank for it. So even just that slight difference there, it's being a little more searched. It's a little more clear. And I see that you have it here, but you're still not ranking for it. So that could be down to you just don't have authority yet, which is something you're trying to do, which I respect and appreciate. So I'd say maybe get rid of the photography 101 series, terminology, etc. You can say that in video. It doesn't have to be here. Shutter speed doesn't make sense. Yeah. It makes sense
those need a serious revision.
Yeah, again, with the sense of 101 doesn't make sense. Put your name together. Social, vlog, experiment, lingo, doesn't matter. But, with that lingo thing, that gives me an idea.
Understanding photography
lingo. See, Aaron's on the same wavelength. Again, so let's go with that. understanding photography lingo, right? And then what if we just get rid of the graphy, right? And look here. I mean, it's not that many results, but that might be how someone types it in. What if they type in understanding photo lingo, right? Well, wow, look here. We're getting a lot more results. It's a lot more searched, and it's just really doing the research. And what I'm seeing here is a great topic for an idea with not a lot of research. And your tags show that. You may have researched it, and you may have ranked for this when it was new, but the thing is, you're not ranking for anything now, so it's not doing that well. Again, you're thinking too much at high level. You got to remember, these people are basic when they're looking for things like this. So what I would say, you're focusing on photography for beginners. So why don't we go photography terms for beginners then, right? Let's actually focusing on that. And I see photography for beginners Nikon. That's way too specific. But photography terms, and here's another thing. You can see how other photography tutorial, ISO, like look at how good this person, photography basics, they focus it on three things they can really hyper focus on. Where you're hyper focusing on the terms, which isn't bad, but maybe focus on that beginner. Add some of these ideas. Get rid of the Nikon, because not everyone's a Nikon shooter, and this is probably very, it's universal, right? So it doesn't necessarily matter too much. Photography 101, not too sure about this. Maybe if you did photography 101, understanding photography terms. But even then, I'm going to say that's probably very niche down. And it actually has some decent search. So maybe if you want to keep that photography 101, you just add it here. You know, again, it's just the research isn't there, is what I'm saying.
I would actually agree with him having the Nikon tag personally.
I'm just saying that the term, what I'm focusing on, and what he's, just from what I'm understanding here, is he's focusing on a broad audience here. So by having this, he's competing with a lot of people in the space, which isn't bad. It's just, if you're going to keep Nikon, photography terms for beginners, Nikon might be better. Or Nikon beginner photography terms. Again, I don't mind it being so specifically. So, but it's just, it's again, it's like lack of understanding what we're doing here. And look at these thumbnails, right? 5 beginner mistakes. This is the one you're really competing with, because this is the one that's ranking #1 on pretty much everything. And here's the thing, this is probably a really good video that answers this question, but look here, not even that good of an understanding of just basic tagging, which shows there's a lot of chance for you to eventually overcome here. So again, this is probably a well shot video, well produced. It's got a lot of traction on social media. It's got a lot of traction on Facebook too. But what it shows me is that there's a chance for you to kind of take yourself here and stake your claim here. So I would say really understand that your SEO here is just not working, and it needs a refresh. Overall, I'd say visually it's an A. Understanding just general what you're doing is important. And what I'd say is you're too focused on making it look good, which is great, and I would say that's fine. Keep that style, keep it looking great. But what I'm saying is, if you're going to do a beginners or like a learning series, you need to remember that you are an expert and that most people don't know the expert terms. So you have to make it super easy for someone who's not an expert to understand it. So what are your thoughts, Aaron?
I mean, overall, I would have to agree with you. It's a situation where I think if I was only rating this from a visual standpoint, that this would be an absolute A plus. But we have to take into the facts, SEO and various other such things that would probably lower my rating quite a bit. But if I was to provide any advice as someone who's in the same field, and like quite honestly, it looks like Jeffrey's done a lot more commercial work than I have, but I don't know if he's ever done teaching, and I've done a lot of teaching. So that's probably where we differ. And I would say from a teaching standpoint, because it looks like what he's trying to do is teach people, is that you have to think more like a student and less like a teacher to help them find your content easier, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And one thing I do in my tutorials for TubeBuddy or even on my personal channel is I remember, what did I not know? It's, again, how do you learn? You have to accept, what do I not know? What do I want to know? How do I get to that knowledge, right? So I think it's a good understanding. I'm going to probably give you a B minus. And I'm going to say that branding's an A, but the understanding of SEO and tagging is low. And that's what's going to hurt your channel right now, because your content I know is good because I've seen it. It's just work on being searchable, work on being discoverable, because you're going to do well. I have no doubt you'll blow up. It's just, you have to be, especially in the field you're going for, you have to be good, which you are, and you have to stand out. And as it is, because of your tagging, your content's good, but you're not standing out. So that's where it is. Aaron, what's your grade?
I would agree and say a B minus.
All right, so you got 2 B minuses, which gives you an average of a B minus. And Jeffrey says he has taught at 2 PPA events, which is fair.
Okay, so that's Press Photographers of America.
Yes.
Good association, by the way. Very, very good.
And that's awesome. But remember, YouTube, especially when you're teaching a 101 kind of course, beginners. So I would look at blogs, look at what people are searching for, look at how beginners would type, look at beginner, like type in on Google, use other sites, and then keep researching, right? Because I see a really cool understanding, but it's, how do I stand out? And that is going to be it, guys. 2 hours in the bag, great stream, a lot covered. Demi, thank you so much for the super chat. I always appreciate them. Aaron, thank you so much for joining us. Guys, give Aaron a round of applause. Amazing job with me here tonight, Aaron. I do appreciate you. If you do not know, Aaron has helped me so much with graphics and art. He's a great source of knowledge. He has some videos coming out. Aaron, why don't you put your link to your channel in this chat? It will be in the description. This is a huge help. Thank you, guys, says Jeffrey. Aaron, any final words for our viewers out there not understanding Photoshop or trying to understand it better? Oh man, Aaron said no. Aaron, hello.
I just realized I was muted for a second, only to prevent the clacking from my keyboard. To continue to his question, sorry for the wait. If you would like to learn more about photography or Photoshop, feel free to follow me on social media or my YouTube, and I do talk about that quite frequently. I have a lot more content in the works as for teaching, but there's tons of resources beyond me. Google, Adobe's website, YouTube. There's books. I'd say trial and error is the best thing you can possibly do for yourself. So get out there and start working.
And guys, if you enjoyed this video, please consider checking out more of the live streams we have done. We have had a lot of live streams on this channel, a lot of great information, and let us come back, learn with us. We go live every Thursday on this channel. Sometimes Aaron's there, sometimes he's not. I love having Aaron on. Aaron's a great guy, great person to learn from. As you saw today, he taught me things that I can take in Photoshop to better myself. Always be a student, always be learning. Remember, I'm Andrew Can, and if I can, you can too.